So Jason, follow there, keeping me on my toes. And there's snow days and illness, and this and that. That's fine. How are you? That is in and of itself a challenge.
No worries. All right, it is 6:30 PM and I'd like to call this meeting of the Community Development Committee to order. While this meeting is being held in person, we are also offering the option for the public to participate through Zoom if preferred. Instructions on how to attend virtually are included in the City Council calendar item listed on the front page of missionks.org. The public is also invited to participate in the meeting. If you are participating through Zoom, please either add your comment in the chat feature and it will be read out loud, or note that you would like to speak and we will call on you shortly to make your comment verbally. Please remember your comments or questions are visible to everyone in the meeting. If you are part of our in-person group tonight, please raise your hand but stay seated and we will call on you to go to the lectern to make your comment. When you make your comment, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Also, please be conscientious of others trying to speak and speak slowly and clearly. All public comments are limited to 3 minutes. This meeting will be recorded and posted on the city's website at missionks.org. Please contact the administration offices at 913-676-8350 with any questions or concerns. Ms. Folks, please call the roll.
Haden, Chomphosy, here. Loudon, here. Ryherd,
Here.
Crane, here. Schmidt,
Here.
Josie,
Here.
Carpenter Davis.
All right, our first item of business tonight is public comment. Is there any member of the public who would like to comment now on an item not on our agenda tonight? Please note public comments are limited to 3 minutes. Seeing none, great. We have one item coming forward from the Planning Commission for consideration of a lot split. Mr. Scott, will you please make your presentation?
This is a lot split for 6029 Outlook, which is literally the next block over from City Hall. And that parcel of property is part of the Mission Hill Acre subdivision that was platted in like 1928. And the home itself was built, I think sometime in the mid-30s, and it was a 744 square foot home, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. It was originally purchased by a custom home builder and demolished, and he's now requesting that the lot be split, which is permissible under our codes. In particular, our code says any lot may be split to a minimum width of 60 feet, which would be the case for this lot. It's 120 feet wide, and he'd like to split it, so each lot would be 60 feet wide. But the rule has to complement the overall character of the adjacent neighborhood. And in considering applications for a lot split to a width of less than 70 feet, the lot width of any newly created lot may not be less than 75% of the average front lot width of lots within the subject property's block. So what's a block? So in planner's parlance, a block is essentially a group of parcels of property that are surrounded on 4 sides by a street or a road. So you kind of take the dog for a walk around the block. So in this case, it would be Outlook on the west, Reed's on the east, Martway in the north, and 61st Street on the south. And when we look at all the lots within that block, and we run this formula, it doesn't meet the test because there's not an average that's less than 60 feet wide. So you kind of do the math, it doesn't quite work out. But then we kind of go back to the very end of the zoning code. There's a section in there that pertains to subdivisions. We don't really look at that anymore because we just don't have a lot of new subdivision applications coming in. So it's kind of often forgot about. But the language is a little bit different. And it defines what a block is. It's like I described, or at the engineer's discretion, the city engineer's discretion. And so I kind of thought about it a little bit differently in terms of a block could be, I live in this block or the 5,500 block of Johnson Drive. So it would be that section of Outlook from 61st Street to Martway on both sides of Outlook. And when you run the formula, it works because most of the properties on the west side of Outlook are all 60 feet wide. So in essence, the lot split would complement all the other properties on Outlook in that block as I defined it. So that's what I explained to the planning commission. They seem to accept that idea. And they voted to recommend approval to the city council 8-0. That's my report. We'll have this on the agenda in 2 weeks for the regular meeting.
Great. Any questions before we move on?
You have 2 weeks to think about it. So hope you have a
I have
question.
a question. So have you had any neighbors? I mean, obviously it's the facility is torn down, the house is torn down. So have you any inquiries from neighbors or?
Yeah, I got a call Monday from a neighbor who lives across the street. Just kind of wanted to know what's going on. She noticed the house had been torn down, there's excavator sitting in the yard. So I explained to her what was occurring. So, oh, it's good. New homes are always nice. So,
And I think the lot split does show sort of the layout.
Yeah.
As the builder anticipates the homes on the lot, so you can kind of get a sense of size and scale. And you had property maintenance code issues with the previous.
yeah. The previous home, we had some property maintenance code. It had been vacant for a while. It was pretty, needed a lot of help, TLC. And one of the commissioners inquired with the custom home builder at the meeting, the general size of the home, and he was thinking about 2,000 square feet, a little bit more. It's kind of a 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths type of home. Pretty good sized house for that lot. It'll have to fit within the parameters of the zoning code, the setbacks and all of that.
Anything else? All right. Oh, yeah.
I think it actually makes sense to consider to walk with the house across the street.
Yeah.
Aesthetically.
Yeah,
as opposed
just
to just the.
which is within the block. Yeah, it's just, yeah,
They I would agree.
different perspective. Yeah, how you think about it. Yeah,
Exactly like the houses across the street.
right. Exactly. Yeah.
What would the distance be between the two homes once they were built?
The setback is 5 feet from property lines. So you got 10 feet between the homes. I think it's gonna be a little bit more if I remember looking at that. It was in the packet, but right around there.
Yeah, you got 12 on the drawing.
Okay, yeah, that was a little bit more, yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we do not have any public presentations this evening, therefore we will move into our action items. Our first action item this evening is for acceptance of the meeting minutes from Monday.
Thank you. Draft minutes of the January 8th Community Development Committee meeting are included for review and acceptance in your packet tonight.
Any comments? Consent? Great, consent. And our next action item this evening is for consideration of a letter of understanding for the 2025 Super Pool Pass program from Penn Elman.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mission has participated in the Super Pool Pass program since 2009. This program offers residents and non-residents who qualify the opportunity to purchase a membership of their home pool and as well as a Super Pool Pass. And that will give them access to participating cities' pools throughout the course of the season. More often than not, it aligns with the swims schedule. And when that pool is not available for use, they can use other cities. So this season, Fairway, Mission, and Prairie Village are the only Super Pool Pass participants. The resident rate will be $20, just like last year. Non-resident rate will be $25. Over the course of the seasons that we've been involved in the program, we've generated over $95,000. And I've included the last 6 years of revenue. You'll notice in 23, we had 3,752 swipes from neighboring communities. And then last year, Roland Park was not participating and they were about 60% of the attendance in 2023. So you'll notice that in the 2024 numbers, there was a pretty sharp decrease. So in order to participate in the program, Mission needs to sign the interlocal agreement as well as the swim meet letter of understanding. So staff recommends approval of Mission signing that letter of agreement and letter of understanding for the 2025 season. I'm happy to take any questions.
Yep. Yeah.
Did the other schools say why they weren't doing it this year?
So Roland Park was interested in doing it and for reasons that didn't align with the kind of the understanding of Fairway, Mission, and Prairie Village. They're not participating this year, but they would like to for 2026. The other communities, for instance, Leewood, they don't necessarily get that much participation. So for them, it's an administrative hassle for not much in return. And the same for Merriam, their pool is indoors, so you've got to access it through a daily fee model. And so it doesn't make sense for them to have kind of the separate access point headache. So those are the reasons why they're not participating.
Anyone else? Guess I'll take a recommendation.
Recommend acceptance on consent.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Our third action item this evening is for consideration of a contract award for the 2025 residential street reconstruction projects from Brent Morton.
Thank you very much. This is the 2025 residential reconstruction program. It's part of our 10-year program to reconstruct failed streets in the residential sector. The 4 streets that we are trying to reconstruct this year have an average PCI score of 23, which is basically a failed state, and pavement cores, they've got about 3 inches of pavement on a majority of the streets. The 4 streets we're talking about tonight is 61st Street between Broadmoor and Barkley, 62nd Street between Glenwood and Lamar, Reed's Road between Johnson Drive and 58th Street, and that one was a bid alternate just for dollars as we get into it a little bit later. And then Beverly Drive, Dearborn to Reed's. The scope of this work, what we've been doing about the last 3 years is full depth reconstruction. So taking all the pavement, curb, drive approaches, replacing all the stormwater, and just building it from the ground up to today's standards. So we'll have a road that will last for the next 50 years with minimal surface treatment and maintenance. And the stormwater system should last much longer than that. The bids, project was put out to bid in December 2024. We received 3 bids on January 24th, 2025. GB Construction was the lowest bidder, a little over 2.8 million. They've also done our street program the last 2 years, which we've had real good luck with and quality work. We try to average our street program to 2 million a year with construction and inspection. A couple of these streets had major storm improvements along with the box culvert we're doing off 62nd Terrace. And all those stormwater facilities were eligible for SMP funding, which is a little over 750,000 we think we're going to get back. So we thought it made sense to apply and do these streets so we could capture that funding for the stormwater rehab and try to knock some of these bigger projects out. We were under the engineer's estimate as well. And Reed's Road, that was the bid alternate, is the reason that was a bid alternate as well is there's no stormwater on that section of road. So there's no reimbursement from SMP. So we're just trying to capture all the dollars we can from the county to get these projects built. So staff is recommending building all four roads at a cost of $2,825,475.70. Includes all 4 streets. And we think there's some sufficient funds in the capital improvement street sales tax fund. And as we know, if we push streets off the 10-year program, it just compounds and we just get less and less done. And it's going to take us a while to catch up in the residential sector. So if we can move more streets along, it's a good thing in the long run. Construction's estimated to start in March. That blizzard snowstorm we had put utility relocation a couple weeks behind. So that could get pushed a little bit depending on where everybody ends up. 270 calendar days to complete the project once they get the notice to proceed. So we plan on having all these roads back open by end of the year and access back, striping, sidewalks, everything completed. Be happy to answer any questions on the 2025 street program.
Yeah. Will these be done at the same time or consecutive?
So in our contract documents, so they can't bounce around town. So once they start on a street, they have to have at least this base asphalt, which is 6 inches in, curb and drive approaches. So then you only have that 2-inch lip to access your drive or your business. And then they can move on to another street. Now, if they're a big enough crew and they're working on the street itself and can go to another project and just work on the storm side that allows access to all the homeowners, that is allowable just to try to move the timeline of the projects up.
Yep, Debbie, and then Ben.
This may sound strange, but I'm curious. Is there a reason that the budget is exactly verbatim what their bid was?
That's a longstanding internal debate that we have. That's not the actual budget. So that's the bid. And I think sometimes when some folks fill out the action item summaries, they look at we have sufficient revenues in that fund. We actually have more than $2.8 million. So there's money to cover that. We wouldn't bring an item forward if we didn't have it, but it can be confusing sometimes.
Well, yeah, doesn't the budget come before the bid? I mean,
Yes, so that we set the budget when we adopt the CIP and all of those things, and we have an estimate and we have an engineer's estimate for the project. And then you are just awarding the contract. So we can go, it just becomes really tricky in part because of the limitations of our financial management system, because staff can't go in and look and see in real time where they are with respect to the capital improvement fund or the street sales tax fund.
okay, so that's not an odd question that's asked, right?
No, it's not an odd question.
Okay.
It's, but we don't, I mean, so part of why you saw us, do Reed's as a bid alternate is because we know we have this $2 million, target each year for residential streets. As we go into the design, so those streets and those projects are getting in our CIP program several years ahead of when they're going to be done. Costs are updated. Each year when we adopt the budget, we have kind of that figure. We watch an engineer's estimate as it goes along. And we wouldn't, if we hadn't already solved the problem of having enough money to award a contract, we would not put it on your agenda.
Thank you.
Ben.
Yeah.
Brent will tell you this is one
Mhm.
we've struggled with how to present it accurately.
So we're talking about 61st, that stretch we're talking about between Target and the post office there?
Yes.
Okay. I guess on the face of it, it feels a little odd to be spending the residential street money there, but I don't know what other bucket you're gonna pull out of for that. That's pretty heavily trafficked by trucks, right?
Yeah, so it doesn't have the threshold to be like a cars route or anything
Yeah,
like that.
I
mean,
figured, yeah.
it's the worst street we have in town right now.
Well, yeah, I figure if it's gonna be big trucks on there all the time, you'd ideally put down as many feet of concrete as you could afford, and it's none, so.
So the way we're subgrade rehabbing and everything now, I mean, it's built to a standard that
Okay.
can handle those loads for sure.
Okay,
But yeah, I mean, there's no other way we don't have another mechanism to fund a
Yeah.
project like that right now. And
yeah, I certainly agree with you. It's not at the least bit nice to be on that stretch of road. Okay, thanks.
you got it.
Anybody else? Okay, was recommendation, I'm looking at Ben.
I recommend we take this to the regular agenda.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Then it's pretty much, almost all the Brent show for the rest of the, okay.
Stuff this year.
Good, we know. Our next action item this evening is for consideration of a task order for inspection services for the 2025 residential street reconstruction projects, also from Brent.
Yes, just talking about the same projects. We always have a full-time construction inspection on these full depth projects. The only time we'll go part-time on projects is like Row last year was a part-time inspection project because it's a mill and overlay, minor storm work, where you really just don't have to be out there all the time, just checking in. But when you get into these full rehabs and utility problems and access for residents and all that. It's always good to have a city. I can't be out there all the time, so having somebody representing the city to talk to the residents. I mean, inspect the project as well, but it's good to have an outside party there to help along through these projects. And we're doing so much work the last 3 or 4 years, just a full-time person out there on site all the time is very helpful, just to keep me in the loop, Stephanie in the loop, and make sure we're getting a quality product built for the dollars we're spending to rebuild these residential streets. Because you all know we're not going to be back there for a long time doing this kind of work, so we need to get it right the first time. So it's the part of the 10-year program still, same 4 streets we just discussed: 61st Street, 62nd Street, Reeds, and Beverly Drive. Full depth reconstruction, curbs, sidewalks where they're existing, we're replacing them. We are adding a small segment of sidewalk along Reeds to connect to Johnson Drive with that project. Stormwater improvements. Pfefferkorn's done our inspections for probably the last 4 to 5 years on multiple projects. They are now one of our on-call firms for inspection services as well. They're a smaller firm. We've had no issues with them, deliver a great product, and a significant cost savings since they're kind of a smaller firm from using some of the bigger firms for inspection. So with that savings, we're able to build more streets potentially, and it just helps revenue wise. So staff is recommending a contract with Pfefferkorn Engineering for $41,320. Construction observation testing is all part of this contract. And we only get billed for the days they're out there. So they're building their agreement off our contract docs, which are allowing the contractor 270 days to build the project. Contractor wants to be faster than that because they make more money. So we're only getting billed for the time they're out there. I'd be happy to answer any questions on the inspection contract.
Question? Yeah, Debbie.
Just a notation, the same thing. They put in a bid at exactly what the budget was. It looks kind of strange to me.
Duly noted.
Next two.
The next 2 are gonna look exactly the same way. And we will fix that.
Okay. Recommendation? Okay.
Regular, so we have to go part of it.
Yeah, it'd be hard to inspect something if we haven't passed the project, so I say regular.
Great. All right, our 5th action item this evening is for consideration of a contract for the 2025 CARS project, also from Brent Morton.
Yes, this is our 2025 CARS project. It is part of our 2024 to 2029 CARS submittal, which was approved in April 3rd, 2024. We submit a 5-year plan every year. I think you will be seeing that in 2 months for the 2025 to 2030 program. And that just gives the county a way to try to fund these projects and kind of have an outlook of what's coming out of the pipe the next 5 years. The same time we approved the 5-year program, we also approved a design contract for 63rd Street between Rowe and Knoll. This is a joint project with Prairie Village. We are administrating the project, and the project splits out since Prairie Village has done some rehab on their side of the road in the past. So about 65% of the work is on our side, 35% of it is on Prairie Village's side. So that's how the cost breakdown with the interlocal that you'll see next month, because Prairie Village is taking that to their council this month. Proposed improvements. It's a 3-inch mill and overlay from Hodges to Rowe, and then from Hodges to Knoll, it's full depth reconstruction. I don't know why it's like this, but half that road has 11 to 12 inches asphalt on it, and the other half has 4 inches on it. So pavement cores, that's a heavily traveled road, and that's why we're having issues out there. So we're getting it back up to standards where it can handle those heavy truckloads. I know it's not a truck route, but there's some trucks that go down that street. So we're replacing the sidewalk that's out there, updating ADA ramps. Most of the curb on our side of the street's getting replaced along with drive approaches. Bids were received, went out in December 2024, got bids back the same time as the street program, January 24th, 2025. Again, GB was the lowest bidder, well under the engineer's estimate, which is great, as we were definitely pushing our cars dollars for this project. So it really helps us out on the reimbursement side. So staff is recommending a contract with GB Construction for $678,690.55. Cars reimbursement is $376. And Prairie Village's side, it's not on here. We just kind of got that hammered out as they're kicking us back about 135 grand once the project's complete.
Okay, there you go.
This one's supposed to go a little quicker, 180 days. So I don't even think it'll take that long. I think they'll get in there and get out. It's just Water One's relocating out there as well, starting in about a month for a full main replacement. So that's going to drive when they get the notice to proceed. But we'd be happy to answer any questions on this one as well.
Yeah, I had a question, Brent, and this might be for Laura. I'm not sure, but because I was thinking this might have been part of the discussion when Knoll was redone, but that intersection at Knoll is just atrocious. Have we ever looked at, I know it's right off Shawnee Mission Parkway, about if that could be signalized or anything? I mean, every rush hour, it seems like people are gonna crash there. I've
So
seen
Knoll-
lots of near misses.
So Nolan 63rd.
Yeah, and like where it goes between like 63rd and 64th, but Nolan 63rd, yeah, with people turning left and they block it, the whole intersection is full, like every rush hour. It's
Yeah,
all blocked in like
yeah.
8 directions.
There's a lot of volume conflict on the conflict point.
So,
on that one.
and so I thought that might have been considered whenever we redid Knoll, and it could be proximity to Shawnee Mission Parkway or something, but I just didn't know if that was something we'd ever.
We didn't look into it
Take
on
it
this
like that.
project, but we are doing Null in 2027
Okay.
with Prairie Village. And that'd probably be the time we'd look at it. And we'd really have to dive in that with the engineers because of the proximity.
Yeah,
and
that's,
everything. So,
I figured it would be tricky, but it's not a good intersection.
so I'll definitely have it on my radar. And
Yeah.
when we get, because that's a joint project as well, we'll
Okay.
definitely look into that and see if there's something we can accommodate there, because that's the time to do it. We can get some outside funding if there's
Yeah.
some sort of signalization or something has to change there, that can get expensive quick. So
Right.
we'll definitely bring it up and try to get something addressed out there on that
Great.
project.
Any other comments, questions? Otherwise, recommendation?
I'm comfortable recommending us for consent. Anybody want to differ? That's fine.
I'd rather, I don't want consent. These big projects need to be put out, I think.
Okay,
Regular agenda?
regular agenda.
All right. Our next action item this evening is for consideration of a task order for construction inspection services for the 2025 CARS project, also from Brent.
Yes, same project. This is our 2025 CARS project, 63rd Street and All Avenue to Row. Again, with Pfefferkorn Engineering. Just like we said in the past few minutes, we've used them in the last 4 years. Had great luck, cost savings, which gives us the ability to build more projects. They're also our on-call now. And this is a shorter length project. We're only getting billed for the days that they're out there. So I think don't hold me to this, but I think there'll be some cost savings on this one, but I think this project's gonna go faster than the 180 days that are spec'd out in the contract docs. So staff is recommending a contract with Pfefferkorn Engineering for $92,140 for construction, documentation, observation, and testing of asphalt, concrete, and all materials used in the project. Be happy to answer any questions.
Yep.
Yes.
Looks like this is a woman-owned company.
Woman and brother, so she owns 51%. He owns 49% from my understanding.
Anything else?
Recommend regular agenda.
Great, yeah, to match. All right. Thank you, Brent,
Thank you.
for all of your contributions tonight. Our final action item this evening is for consideration of an interlocal agreement for the 2025 street reconstruction project, stormwater reimbursement from Stephanie Boyce.
Thank you. Like Brent said, we're building things. So this goes along with a 2025 street preservation project. Johnson County provides funding assistance for replacing aging stormwater infrastructure. with a condition rating above 3.2. And program offers a 50/50 cost share, for those, who are replacing infrastructure, not upgrades. So, we submitted an application to the county in 2024, for the stormwater infrastructure that's included in the 2025 street preservation project that Brent just brought to you. And within that agreement, we have about a little over $1.6 million in infrastructure that will be replaced, with a cost share of up to 50% of that. With the bids that came back, we believe it's going to be a little bit under that 50/50 mark. So probably about 750,000 that will be coming back to the city. And again, that share has already been allocated, through a transfer, from the Stormwater Utility Fund for the street program budget. So we're seeking approval of the interlocal agreement with the county, to go ahead and use these funds towards our 2025 street rehab project.
Great. Thank you. Any questions? Recommendation, if there's no questions or comments.
I recommend acceptance. and I guess this probably goes on the regular agenda as well.
Yeah, just from the amount. Got a lot to read next week, guys.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. And that concludes our action items. We do not have any discussion items this evening. But before we adjourn, Ms. Smith, are there any department updates for the Community Development Committee?
I would just remind everybody that we have a joint City Council Planning Commission meeting next Tuesday at 6 p.m. at the Community Center for our kickoff meeting with zoning on the zoning code update with Orion, our consulting firm, 6 o'clock, and we are providing dinner. So, Brian, did you have anything else out of community development? Okay, and then I'll ask Penn. Penn had a couple of updates.
So this time every year, we partner with Rushton Elementary to do a poster contest. We've asked the teachers for the 5th grade students to teach them the importance of trees and what they provide for each of our communities. Those teachers have done that, and the top 10 posters were chosen by the teachers. We're going to post those tomorrow. And so from tomorrow all the way through next Monday, they'll be available down the main hall of the Powell Community Center for you to look at and vote for. So please spread the word. We're going to send social media posts and also put it in our email blast to patrons of the community center. And then I also got a couple questions about the outdoor bathrooms at Waterworks Park and Mohawk Park. So I wanted to give an update on that. At Waterworks Park, the heater was installed improperly, and as a result, failed. So it's all under warranty. So they had a contractor come out, repair the heater, and now we have to repair the plumbing damage that happened as a result of the cold weather. So we have gotten the replacement fixtures that were under warranty, and now they're scheduling a plumber to come out sometime between now and next week. So hopefully we get that resolved pretty quickly. And then Mohawk Park was similar situation, although there was no damage to the heater. It actually just tripped, and we don't check it every day, which is now something we will do in cold weather situations. But the plumbing froze as a result of that. And so now we've got some replacement parts on order and expect that to be up and running by next week as well. And so Waterworks Park, both bathrooms will be up and running year round. And in the winter, what we've noticed for Mohawk Park was that there's only enough insulation to really protect that middle bathroom. So we feel like usage is trending lower in the winter months, so one bathroom should suffice. Any other questions?
Yep.
Is it the same company that put those in?
2 different companies. In fact, the Waterworks Park was a prefabricated restroom. And so you would think everything should have been installed properly because it was done indoors on their site, but unfortunately it wasn't. You bet.
This close, it was upside down.
Okay.
All right. That all the updates? All right, it is now 7:05 PM and with no further discussion, that concludes the meeting of the Community Development Committee. Again, this video will be made public on our website at missionks.org. Thank you.
Does anybody need a break of any kind? Nope. Okay. It is now 7:06 PM, and I'd like to call this meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee to order. While this meeting is being held in person, we are also offering the option for the public to participate through Zoom if preferred. Instructions on how to attend virtually are included in the City Council calendar item listed on the front page of missionks.org. The public is also invited to participate in the meeting. If you are participating through Zoom, please either add your comment in the chat feature and it will be read out loud, or note that you would like to speak and we will call on you shortly to make your comment verbally. Please remember your comments or questions are visible to everyone in the meeting. If you are part of our in-person group tonight, please raise your hand but stay seated and we'll call on you to go to the lectern to make your comment. When you make your comment, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Also, be conscientious of others trying to speak and speak slowly and clearly. This meeting will be recorded and posted on the city's website at missionks.org. Please contact the administration offices at 913-676-8350 with any questions or concerns. Ms. Folks, please call the roll.
Haden, Chomphosy. Here. Loudon. Here. Ryherd. Here. Pring.
Here.
Schmidt.
Here.
Josie.
Here.
Carpenter Davis. Here.
Our first item of business tonight is public comment. Is there any member of the public who would like to comment now on an item not on our agenda tonight? Please note public comments are limited to 3 minutes. I don't see anyone in person. No one is online, so we will move on. We have one public presentation this evening, an update and review of federal funding grants and loans from Laura Smith.
Yes, thank you. What I handed out has also been uploaded to the packet this afternoon, so that's available for you there or for the public. I think you all are aware of kind of all of the madness that was happening last week with respect to directives coming out about pauses in federal funding and restraining orders and rescinding of directives. And so through that process, the Johnson County Post had intended to do a story. And so they were asking cities to identify all of these things. And then the restraining order was put in place. And so they weren't going to do the story. And then, oh, by the way, yes, they were going to do the story by Friday. So shared generally with them kind of total dollar amounts in some of the more significant projects. But I had asked each of the department directors to go through and really comprehensively identify all of those things where we currently receive or have federal grant or loan funding that's allocated. And I'll just run through this quickly. We still are waiting on a lot of answers. It's still, I think, a great degree of uncertainty. We haven't heard from the Mid-America Regional Council or some of these other agencies with respect to whether or not we can anticipate that these funds are still intact, or if in fact they will be impacted by any of the executive orders or decisions. So Fox Ridge Phase 2, this was a community project funding grant that was secured for us by Representative David's office in 2024. This one we already sort of know is a challenge because that process got so delayed that our project was essentially complete before the funding was appropriated. And so we are working now, the assignments and the cohort for this project was just established about 2 weeks ago. So we're still exploring whether we can access any portion of this $850,000 if it should still be available to us. Obviously, our biggest concern is the $6 million in surface transportation funding for the Johnson Drive project that was secured or requested in 2022, secured in 2023 through Mark for construction of that project in 2026. As you know, we are preparing to go out and start the right-of-way and easement acquisition process. And so here, I mean, we've actually slowed it just slightly. But in order to kind of keep all of these pieces on track, that's probably where our focus will be in trying to get an answer on that. But total project amount of a little over 13 million with a grant amount, federal grant of 6 million. There's also county dollars, and the county dollars are not at stake or in jeopardy at this point. Those are all generated through state gas tax sales or a dedicated stormwater sales tax at the county. You may recall that we were awarded a grant for a Safe Streets and Roads for All study. It has taken a tremendous amount of time for Stephanie to work through the processes, but I think just 2 weeks ago, we actually issued the RFP to select a consultant to do that study. Total project amount there is $200,000 with $160,000 of that coming from the federal government with a $40,000 local match. So we have not yet selected the consultant, entered into a contract, expended any funds. So that's a positive in that respect. Stormwater master plan study. We were partnering with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers through a planning assistance to states funding program to develop a comprehensive stormwater master plan throughout the city. Total project amount of $356,000, a grant amount for 50% of that, or 178. We have actually already remitted our portion to the Army Corps of Engineers, but the work has not yet started because they are administering that project. So we'll have to, if something were to change and that grant is not going to proceed, we'll have to request our funds back from the Army Corps of Engineers. We were part of a countywide EV charging station installation grant. Total countywide was about 1.4 million. Those were grants coming under the carbon reduction program umbrella to install EV charging stations throughout the county, primarily in parks and other public facilities. Our plan was to install one at the community center and one at Broadmoor Park. So our cost for mission was estimated at about $228,000. We were contributing $45,000 roughly for the 20% match with a grant funding of a little over $180,000. That one, the RFP did they release it last week? Or reviewing? Oh, you're picking the vendor. So we haven't awarded that or expended the funds. I think this is one that at least we've flagged as potentially at risk because of the grant umbrella in the carbon reduction program that it falls under. So we're continuing the processes, but we'll be very judicious when we get to contract award stage. The e-bike project was a grant, again, through the carbon reduction program, joint project with, or grant application with the city of Roland Park to install a total of 50 e-bikes, 20 in Roland Park, 30 in Mission. We hit a snag last year because when KDOT got involved in the review after the grant award through Mark's process, they said, oh, well, the operation of the e-bikes is not an eligible expense under this grant, despite the fact that was the guidance that had been provided on the front end. The operating expenses were the lion's share of the grant. So that project was actually shifted to 2026 to allow us time to explore opportunities or maybe resubmitting under another program to secure that, and also to look at potential sponsorship opportunities. But we wanted to communicate to you this evening. I think I've talked with some of you about it, but Roland Park will also be communicating to their committee if the operations funding is not in place, they will not be able to participate in the program, and likely we probably wouldn't either at that price tag. Oh, 2025. Nope. Yes.
Okay.
Traffic signal enhancements. So this is upgrading the traffic signals from Broadmoor to Row. And again, total project amount, $236,000, a grant amount of about $197 for that. That's integrating Johnson Drive into the Operation Greenlight system. We have a grant funding the second mental health co-responder in the police department that the city of Merriam has been the administrator on for the last several years, and that provides us with a total savings of approximately $40,000 a year. Again, that's one that we are waiting to hear whether that funding will be impacted. Looking at opportunities, the good news for us is, I know that's a priority for the council. We fund our portion of that from our special alcohol fund, which you may recall has sufficient revenues to cover that cost. So at least in the short or near term, I think even if those grant funds were to go away, we can continue that second co-responders position. The Bulletproof Vest Grant and the traffic grant programs are smaller dollar amounts historically, and that varies. Some years we get the Bulletproof Vest Grant, some years we don't. Again, waiting to see ultimately what happens there. And then we were scheduled to enter into an agreement with Mark for the Planning Sustainable Places Grant that was awarded to look at a similar concept study for the western portion of the Rock Creek Trail from Lamar to Metcalf. And again, that was a total project amount of $110,000, with the grant being 86 of that, and our share at $24,000. Also on hold at this point. And the last one is FEMA reimbursement for our 2023 storm expenses. We submitted, or we spent about $150,000 between primarily storm debris cleanup, tree limb removal. That process, as the chief can tell you, is because he's managed all of and helped coordinate all of that, has been very lengthy. So we've been reimbursed for, they divided our expenses into 3 project categories that are detailed here. So we have emergency measures, which really covers the cost of running our generators, debris removal, and then parks and recreation expenses, which were damages to the community center, Broadmoor Park, and our street banners. So we have been reimbursed the $11,884 for emergency measures. The rest of it is still under review and pending. So that's kind of where we stand today. We will certainly keep you updated and apprised as we get more information and learn more about what the future holds with respect to all of this, but I'd be happy to answer any questions about anything included on this list.
Thanks, Laura. Are there any questions from the committee?
Just a comment. Thank you so much with the grant information. Regardless of where we end up, it's awesome that you can get that much money out of other people to support our community, and I totally appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, I will say that the reason we created this list is not ideal, but I think in creating it, at least for me, I recognized a better opportunity to help us effectively communicate to the public where we are and where we have been successful in securing other people's money. So it's probably a good addition to the budget every year.
Brian, I just want to make one comment, and I did send a letter. Let's see, was that last week now?
I think
to
so.
what is time?
I think it was a week ago Monday.
To our congressional delegation about this, highlighting in particular the Johnson Drive project, because I wanted to get something out the door quickly. And I know at least, I think 1 or 2 of those offices have also asked for the complete list. So I know the plan is to share that with them as well to see.
And many of them
scope
are
impact.
are now having surveys online for constituents and things. So we're
Yeah.
tracking and filling out wherever we can.
You heard anything back?
I did receive responses, not necessarily substantive responses, but I did receive responses from all 3 offices. So they have at least gotten the information.
So are we just, holding pattern, or are these different grants kind of getting back with you, or do we have to wait for this to go through the courts? No idea.
I'm not sure I have a clear definitive answer on that. I think we will focus, obviously, the lion's share of our efforts to get some clarity will be around the Johnson Drive grant. Because not only are we launching into easement acquisition, but in order to keep that project on track, we need to issue debt, and we have that coming forward. And we'll talk about that later on this evening's agenda. So that, I think, is where we will focus the majority of our attention, and then, we'll just keep looking for, asking the questions that we need to ask. Some of these, because of the stage that they are in either a consultant review or selection process, or, we're not administering the EV charging station grant. So we'll have opportunities to, I think we're slowly trying to keep things moving forward in the event that the dollars stay in place, but we'll have contingency plans certainly for those, should we find out otherwise.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other? Oh, yep, sure.
Will this information be shared on our website? And the reason I say this is because you're talking about surveys that are available. People in the community could provide some input potentially, depending on what kind of survey they are. And I think our citizens identified that this is a priority, our streets.
Mhm.
And as a council, that's our priority too. But our federal government is all of a sudden saying, oh, not so much.
Maybe not, yes.
Yeah.
No, I think we can absolutely share that, and I think it probably makes some sense if we can collect some information about how and who they should contact themselves if surveys aren't. I saw the surveys that I've seen personally have been more related to a lot of social service, so the Head Start programs and some of those type of things. But I think making sure that we can provide the contact information for our congressional delegation.
And Laura, I would say emails are especially important on that because I've been hearing from folks that voicemails are full. Although on the Senate offices, I've heard some success calling their Garden City offices, which get less traffic than their Johnson County offices if anyone's looking to make some calls. But
Yeah. We can certainly put this out there and make it more readily available to folks.
Super. Thank you.
Or maybe we could organize a council office visit. Some sign.
Okay, good. Any other questions or comments regarding this? Nope. Great, thank you. We will go ahead and move on to action items. Our first being the acceptance of meeting minutes from Robin Folks.
Thank you. Draft minutes of the January 8th Finance and Administration Committee meeting are included for review and acceptance in your packet tonight.
Anyone have any concerns or comments?
Recommend consent.
Consent it is. Our final action item. No, I'm sorry. Our next action item this evening. I thought that was short.
Wishful thinking.
Yes, our next action item this evening is for consideration of reclassification requests, also from Laura Smith.
Yes, thank you. So the last time we came forward with a reclassification request was in January of 2023. At that time, it also included several sort of departmental reorganization recommendations. But we do review positions throughout the organization periodically to make sure that our position descriptions and our salary grades are aligned with the actual work that's being performed. This is known as reclassification, and it is one piece of the overall classification compensation system management for an organization. It's not uncommon for employees' jobs to change over time, especially in a small organization such as ours. That can be the result of changes in policies and programs. It can be the result of things we learn in a pandemic. It can be the result of any number of things. And reclassification requests can come forward from a specific employee, supervisors, department directors, HR, or from me. And that classification and reclassification is based on several factors that look at kind of the nature and variety of the job, difficulty of the duties, responsibility for staff and resources. So how many supervisory experience, budgetary span of control type of issues, knowledge required, authority and relative sort of autonomy of the position. Or we can also reclassify when a position changes from full-time to part-time. One of the things that's most confusing, I think, inside an organization when we talk about reclassifications is that we're talking about the position and not the person. And that becomes very, very challenging, but especially can be challenging, again, in a small organization such as ours, where effectively, except in really the Public Works Department and the Police Department, we only have one person in each position. So it's hard to separate and make that distinction. So we don't look at things when we look at reclassifications. We don't look at longevity. We don't look at retention. So if an employee comes to us and says, I have another job opportunity, I'd like you to reclassify me. Financial need, so personal circumstances change in an employee's life. Their personality or future projects, which could be assigned to them. The kind of quality and quantity of work, many of those things are also are addressed through our annual performance review system. And we can reclassify positions when they're vacant, or we can reclassify a position when there's an incumbent that is currently serving in that job. It's different than moving the entire salary structure. So different than our merit or performance-based changes to compensation, any market adjustments that we do, compression adjustments. So when we see within, for example, police officers, when we have so many people in one position classification and turnover, and people with longer tenure are making the same salary. This is different than that, and department reorganization. So all of those things come together over the course of the life of classification compensation system in the organization to make sure that we are competitive, strong, and fair in what we're able to offer. Also providing and making sure and taking a periodic look at our position descriptions, and being as clear about expectations in those also helps us increase the likelihood when we're recruiting that we find the right candidates for those jobs. So this evening, we are bringing forward a series of reclassification requests for the following positions: city clerk, special projects coordinator, city planner, permit technician, mechanic, park maintenance supervisor, and membership coordinator. The reclassification memo was shared with you all yesterday and has been uploaded to the packet as well, so I'll kind of just touch on each one of these briefly and then be happy to answer any questions. City clerk's position is a non-exempt position. That means it is hourly, eligible for overtime, full-time position. We're recommending reclassification from a grade 17 to a grade 20. Many of the changes that have occurred in the city clerk's position occurred in January 2024 following the transition of the deputy city administrator for finance and administrative services. So many of the public information responsibilities, social media content creation and management, as well as analytics related to social media, website management, and really all of the other public facing communication tools were transitioned to that position. It has taken on an expanded role with respect to the Mission magazine, has an elevated role in planning and coordinating public events and special events and activities, oversees the coordination of the report of concern feature on the website, and helps to ensure appropriate follow-up and response. And it's anticipated that the position would take on the supervisory responsibility for the special projects coordinator's position, which I'll talk about here in a moment, which we're in the process of recruiting for. The special projects coordinator position is one, it was actually created in part when Susie Gibbs transitioned off of the council and still had responsibilities for the family adoption program in the Mission magazine. That has since transitioned, and Kate Deacon has fulfilled that role for the last several years, spending less than 20 hours a week in that position as the primary coordinator for the Mission Market. The position was also responsible for content and creation of the social media accounts for the market, worked on the Mission Monthly newsletter, served on the magazine editorial board, and frequently wrote articles for the magazine. So I think I had mentioned to you before, Kate has transitioned out of that position effective the end of January to focus on her family. But in planning for that replacement, we really identified the need or the opportunity to increase that, the number of hours, still a part-time position, but 30 hours a week, which would make it benefit eligible under our policies. That we would be able to use those additional hours and that expertise to help support primarily the public information, social media workload that has transitioned to the clerk's position as well. We've currently funded that position through the administration department, and which is part of the general fund budget, which we would continue to fund 50% of that position. And then we're recommending 50% of that be funded through the Mission Convention and Visitors Bureau Fund, which has a sufficient revenues to accomplish that. In community development, we have been talking about for 6 to 9 months, a reclassification of the city planner's position. Again, a full-time position, currently at a grade 17. Proposal is to go to a grade 19. It is really based on that position, as you know, is currently vacant. And so really looking at and making sure we had any clarification or changes in that position description before we started recruiting was important. In recent years, I think the city planner's position has taken a more prominent role in administrative support for the land use and development functions of the city. You know, we've added and expanded the community development department with a building official and a building inspector and the planner, our code enforcement officer, our community development coordinator. And so although Brian is deputy city administrator in community development, still is definitely tied to the planning experience, there was an opportunity to expand and transition some of that work to the planner's position. That position is expected to communicate with developers, property owners, and the public, provide support to the Planning Commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals, and research and make application for grant funds and opportunities. Really interaction with the consultants and various stakeholders in the community is a key function of the position. There's obviously no immediate budgetary impact due to the vacancy, in that current position. The permit technician position is also currently vacant, and we're getting ready to post that and start the recruitment. This is one that we've kind of discussed and moved around and explored opportunities with over the last several years. It at one point in the not so distant past was strictly an administrative assistance position. Does a lot of support, not only in the community development department, but also phone answering, mail sorting, mail delivery, a lot of administrative functions really for all of us here in City Hall. I think the hope had been, the last time we had reclassified that, was that we would have someone who would obtain some certifications and be able to issue some of the more basic permits themselves without having that go through other staff in the department. We've had limited success with that, and kind of a struggle in making sure we get the administrative functions covered as well. So we've looked at those needs along with the pending implementation of the GovBelt permitting software, to just downgrading that position from the current grade 13 to a proposed grade 12. And I think there's a longer term plan to see if we can get someone with the skill set to pursue the certifications. We may bring that back for reclassification in the future. In the Public Works Department, the request is for reclassification of our mechanic, a non-exempt position. And I'm sorry, there's a typo. The permit technician is non-exempt. The planner is the only exempt position that we have included in this series of requests. The proposal there is to transition from the current grade is 15, proposed grade 19. Along with a grade change is a recommended change in title to fleet maintenance manager. I think many of you, we have been able to expand the role and responsibilities of the position, so it no longer focuses solely on the maintenance of our vehicles and equipment, but has assumed a role in the procurement and replacement of the vehicles, the sale of surplus vehicles, in addition to the fleet management, has taken on responsibilities for facility management as well, creating more opportunities for our public works superintendent, assistant superintendent, and also the director to focus on projects and the day-to-day operations of the department. So the title and grade change more accurately reflect the current duties and responsibilities There is no immediate salary impact associated with this. Typically, in a reclassification, we would move an employee to the midpoint of the new range as a part of the reclassification, but the current incumbent is earning above that midpoint. So the range transitions and provides opportunity for more long-term earning potential there. Parks and Recreation, we have the park maintenance supervisor, currently a grade 16, proposed grade 17. You'll recall that in 2021, we took a full-time maintenance position from the community center and created a park maintenance position to focus on maintenance and upkeep of our outdoor park amenities as we really looked at bringing new improvements online and or taking care of the things that we already had. We have reclassified this position previously, but with the continued investment in our outdoor parks, the responsibilities really just continue to grow and grow. If you look at the over $5 million of new improvements that we've installed in the last couple of years, we've also been able to secure and retain more consistent part-time staff. And so the position continues to expand the supervisory responsibilities. Additionally, the position required a playground safety or playground inspection certification. It now also includes aquatic facility operation certification, as well as possession of a commercial driver's license. Again, reclassification would move the incumbent to the midpoint of the grade, and as you'll recall, the funding for the parks maintenance position, both full-time and part-time, was transitioned to the Parks and Recreation Sales Tax Fund in 2024. So no impact to the general fund. Also in Parks and Recreation, the membership services coordinator at the community center was long tenured employee, retired in November. And as we do with every position, I task the departments with looking at what do you need? Do we need to make any changes at this time? And so they've done a great deal of work looking at what the needs are, where they have opportunities to take advantage of efficiencies. And so the recommendation here is to actually reclassify this from a full-time position to a part-time regular position. Again, 30 hours a week, benefit eligible. But it is anticipated that this position will assist in sort of modernizing the membership processes, looking at more efficient digital workflows, helping to enhance the data quality that is going to feed into many of the decisions that we're evaluating with respect to overall operations of the center. Additionally, this position would have expectation of some weekend work, because one of the things that we know is that the entry desk staff and supervision on the weekend is sometimes inconsistent when it's just part-time staff. And so we would look to this position who will oversee the entry desk staff under the supervision of the business manager. The hope here is by reducing this position and the dollars required for this position, it may help free up funding for other fuller part-time positions, which are still being evaluated based on the recommendations of the feasibility study. So when we look at the net budgetary impact for 2025 of these reclassifications, it's a total of $54,000 allocated between salary and benefits, with salary impacts of $2,750. That seems really low, but remember, we're taking a full-time position and reducing it down to a part-time position. So there are net impacts there. And then the benefit impacts are more significant for exactly that same reason, because we're adding benefits to 2 part-time positions. The estimated impact to the general fund because of that transition of the membership services or the membership coordinator's position actually results in overall savings. In addition, because of the transfer of 50% of the special project coordinator expenses to MCVB, 100% of the park maintenance supervisor expenses to the Parks and Recreation sales tax. And again, the reduction in hours. Whenever we estimate benefits, we estimate high. We estimate that an employee is going to enroll in our premier health and welfare plans at the family level. So there may be an opportunity for lower costs based on employees who are hired and their needs or benefits that they may select. Plan would be if the council looks at approves the reclassification requests at your February meeting, the changes would be effective March 1st. We've started and we have drafts of all of these updated job descriptions. We would finalize those, share the approved changes with the impacted employees, and then implement any specific salary changes as necessary. They're also included in the packet is a look at our overall classification and compensation structure. And so what you'll see here illustrated are the highlighted positions that were recommended for reclassification and any changes in grades that might be recommended. So you can see more comprehensively the dollars. So in addition to what we've talked about this evening, we're also in the process of reviewing and assessing our overall city salary structure. We haven't moved the whole salary structure for a year or two, as well as compensation issues related to the recruitment and retention of law enforcement personnel, which continues to be a challenge for us. We are planning to review and discuss both of those items at a work session on February 26th. And the chief and I are working with a focus group of employees from the police department to be a part of any recommendations that we bring forward. So happy to answer any questions. I know that was a lot.
Thanks, Laura. Are there any questions from the public or committee? Doesn't look like, oh, yep, go ahead.
Just one quick question. Okay. I'm understanding the membership person will be working potentially 10 hours less, still make the same annual salary as it currently exists.
They're in the same grade. They will not necessarily be making the same annual salary. So it will be classified because essentially the function of the position is not changing. So when the function doesn't change, we leave that position in the same salary grade or salary classification. So there will be a savings because, well, we anticipate twofold because you have the incumbent who retired, who had been here for 22 years. So earning high at the end. Our hope is, to try to bring people at that lower end. So not only the reduction in number of hours worked, but also probably just the earnings and the budgetary impact based on that person's tenure and longevity in the position.
Any other questions? No? Can I get a recommendation on this one?
Recommend acceptance, regular agenda.
Regular? Okay. Our final action item this evening is for consideration of a resolution approving a master capital improvement plan from Justin Carroll.
All right. You might be acutely aware that next year there's 2 semi-large projects that we have going on in the city. And so as such, we've kind of hinted at this already that we're going to need to issue some bonds to kind of help finance those projects. And so this is the first step in that, which is approval of this master CIP. And so the reason that we go through this process goes back to 2021 when the city council approved a charter ordinance that exempted them from some of the general requirements that are in state statute, which then allow us to go through a different process. And so those charter ordinances are designed they're allowed for cities can use what they pass them. It can exempt them from non-uniform enactments of the state legislature. So in this case, it relates to bond and debt financing. So that's why that charter ordinance was passed. I will note that technically, if anyone was extra vigilant and went back and looked at that charter ordinance, it does actually apply to parks projects. But in this case, just kind of to keep everything above board, we're going to recommend adopting another master CIP. And then also in the next year or two, if we find ourselves in a situation where we wanted to debt finance parks projects, which is you'll see there is a few years in the CIP, then that would already be covered by this action that we would be taking. And so with that, it is just, we're estimating about 5 million for Johnson Drive and additional debt financing to help cash flow that project. And the same amount for the Rock Creek, the big channel repairs we'll be doing there as well. And so the recommendation is for the master CIP, and then the next steps would be coming in March and April and to actually go forward and issue the debt itself.
Thank you. Can I get, yeah.
So normally when we due debt, we have a planned revenue stream to pay that off. What is the revenue stream here?
So we've been running potential debt scenarios with our financial advisor for about the last year, looking at those opportunities. And so we believe on the Johnson Drive side, it would be a combination of the transfer likely that we're making from the general fund as well as street sales tax revenues. On the stormwater side, that would be repaid through stormwater utility fees. We've estimated and put together our CIP, anticipating no revenue, no special benefit district revenues coming from the Gateway site, which is also, as you recall, about $600,000 a year. And all of our current stormwater debt will be retired by 2029. So we will continue, and what we may look at and what we're working through with Mr. Kimmel is sometimes we can look at structuring the debt so that we are able to not take on too much of a burden depending on what other projects we have. But on the stormwater utility side, I think that's, the easiest kind of cleanest thing way to do that. And I think we really don't have any concerns in either case. What we know and have anticipated on the street side is what we were already discussing tonight, and that is the streets are expensive. Our residential streets are expensive. But that section of Johnson Drive is one of the worst streets in town as well. And Brent indicated in a meeting earlier that one of the streets he gets the most complaints about in terms of sort of rideability. Plus, if we don't do that street now, we can't take advantage of the $6 million, hopefully in federal funding, plus somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 million in CARS funding and about $500,000 in SMAC funding. And we would be doing it all on our dime, which would not happen very quickly. So we look at that very, very carefully, and we will continue to look at that and really illustrate the debt scenarios for you when we come forward in March with a pre-sale resolution.
So if I understand, the street sales tax is generating enough revenue that we can pay for the things that we currently have going on, but then there's some left that we could then
Yes.
pay off.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Any additional questions? No? Can I get a recommendation on this one?
Regular agenda.
Regular. That was it for action items. We have one discussion item tonight related to the request for creation of a community improvement district for the Mission Mart Shopping Center, also from Laura Smith.
And I see Mr. Floodman is here as well. So I'll just kind of give you an update and a little bit of explanation as to why this is a discussion item at this point, what our next steps are. And then if you have any questions for either one of us, I'm sure he would be happy to answer. So as you're aware, Sunflower Group has been working really for the better part of a year and a half to acquire the Mission Mart Shopping Center. And as a part of that process, initially, they inquired about the use of a community improvement district, or CID, to aid in funding upgrades and improvements. In January of 2025, Ridgeview North Associates LLC, which includes members of Sunflower Development Group, submitted their formal CID application to the city, or petition, seeking to levy an additional 1% retailer sales tax to take effect July 1st of 2025 for a period of 22 years, which is the statutory maximum length on a community improvement district. And they identified approximately $3.5 million in improvements and upgrades to the shopping center in that petition. You may have noticed that in Mr. Kimmel's memo that was distributed earlier this week, they do intend to do more than $3.5 million worth of improvements to the center over time. This was just the budget that was included in this specific CID petition. They gave a presentation, which was also included again in the packet, really seeking to maintain the history and character of the shopping center, which is our largest retail center. And with 129,000 square feet of leasable space, 26 active tenants. Their goal is to really modernize the space, ensure its long-term viability, maintain existing tenants, and draw new quality tenants into the shopping center. State statute requires cities to pass a resolution calling a public hearing on the creation of the Community Improvement District, and the council passed Resolution 1208 in January, giving the notice of intent to consider the petition and setting the date for the public hearing at the February 19th, 2025 City Council meeting. A CID sales tax has to be considered and approved by the council, but it doesn't take away from existing sales tax revenue. So this is a sales tax layered on top of what we already receive. So it doesn't cut into our general 1% or the special parks or special street sales tax revenues. So then following the public hearing, the council considers an ordinance to formally establish the Community Improvement District, as well as considering a development agreement, which outlines the terms and conditions for distribution of the sales tax proceeds to the developer. So the draft of the proposed CID ordinance was included in the packet. We are still in the process of drafting and circulating the proposed development agreement. So we did not include it at this time, and so that's why it's shown as a discussion item. We anticipate that at the February 19th meeting, we will open the public hearing, make the presentations, and then we'll continue that to your March 19th meeting. We may, as smoothly as the other negotiations have gone with respect to this development team, we may be in a position at the February 19th meeting to share that development agreement. So you at least, or at least outline the terms that have been proposed and are being discussed, but we won't ask you to take action on that. The state requires the notice of any change in sales tax prior to the first of the quarter immediately preceding the quarter the sales tax is to take effect. So that means by March 31st, if approved, we would have to notify the state. We built our calendar around this project with the developer and their team, hoping to get through it by February, recognizing if we needed to slip a month, we would not delay or we would not keep them from meeting that July 1st implementation date. That's really kind of where we are in the process. And I think some of you have asked some questions of me about project specifics. And so I would, if you still have those, I would defer those to Mr. Floodman.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? You looked like you had one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything super big or general. One thing that I really like that I see on some of the renderings here is some pedestrian improvements, especially I think kind of that crosswalk that's pictured between the two halves of the shopping center or the arches there, currently kind of difficult to navigate on foot and with strollers and things. So that's great. Hoping to see little bits of that around it. I think Mission Mart currently is both a good way to a good facility for pedestrian and stroller and bike access in some ways and difficult in others. So I'm glad to see some attention paid to that. In general, as I said the last time we discussed this, I think this is largely you and your tenants applying a tax to yourselves to improve and beautify the community. So I'm not here to stand in your way as long as it looks like it is doing that function. So
Thank you. Yep, Leah.
I really like the look of this and the fact that you're wanting to take something that's already here and making it nicer, not just raising it and starting over again. Very sustainable.
Thank you.
The proposed walkways, as Ben mentioned, and all of the landscaping looks really nice. Will those be native plants or?
We haven't gotten to the fine details of that, but I would assume yes.
Okay.
They absolutely will. And they'll meet all the landscape requirements, and we're very familiar with the process as we went through the lanes, and we don't want to change the look too much because we really worked hard with the lanes to try to kind of keep that. There's a lot of architecture going on in this area, but we want to be pretty calculated with keeping Mission Mart similar, but kind of updating it just a little bit.
Appreciate that. And in the renderings, it looks like all the HVAC stuff is off the roof and elsewhere, or is that just not noted in the drawings?
It will still be there.
Okay.
I wish that structurally we could just raise and do things. Now, when we improve a lot of the HVAC systems, some of those are very, very old. And some will be much smaller and more convenient and not be as obvious as we move forward. And that's a big thing that I think we're going to do. I'm a big fan of Steve Choickett. I always have been and I always will be. But Steve was very efficient, very hands-on. And I think there's an opportunity here maybe to offer some TI dollars and bring some new tenants into this area that I think everybody will be pretty excited about.
Yeah, so Mayor, go ahead.
I just had a quick question about
Yeah.
timeline. I know it said next 5 years. Do you think we'll see big improvements ahead of the 2026 World Cup, or is that too much
Oh,
to hope
gosh,
for?
Now you're putting me on the spot. I would hope so. I mean, our kind of first step is we want people to drive by and go, whoa, what's going on? You know, like just as an example, all the trees on the north side, I mean, half of those trees, they're kind of dead. And I think those could be upgraded. I think the lighting, the branding, just the color in general can highlight that area a little bit better. And so we hope to have some of those things absolutely done by the time the World Cup gets here, but don't quote me on that. But yes, that would be a priority day one. Yeah. And the roof and some other things that need to take place.
I'm really excited about this project. There's so
Thank you.
many benefits derived by the community as a whole, by the shopping opportunities. I'm real interested to see what the signage will look like, because you've got like a pretty plain looking stretch of
Yeah.
buildings, but the signage is really going to make a big difference. I'm anxious to see that. So thank you for everything.
Not a problem. We're excited about the signage. I think that's a very efficient way to, just the lighting of the whole district can be, I think, a lot more, just a lot better. So we think there's some good opportunities there that'll bring more visibility to the existing tenants too, right? So there's a benefit there.
Cool. Anybody else? No? Thanks so
All
much.
right, thanks, everybody.
I think that leaves us with any department updates that we may have today.
Oh, the other, I will say, so I mentioned during the reclassification request that on the 26th, we'll have a work session on law enforcement compensation. Also, we're going to be bringing back an item to discuss. We've had some conversations around the potential of creating a no camping on public property ordinance. And so we want to just discuss with you and get some direction about whether that's something you would like for us to proceed with. So that will also be a topic on the February 26th work session agenda.
Quickly, Laura, you'll define for us what camping is, right? I mean, is it like
Yes,
24 hours? Is it?
yes, it will be, yes. The chief will be the star of the February 26th work session.
Are there any additional comments or questions? Does not look like it. So it is now 7:58 p.m. And with no further discussion, that concludes the meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee.